In conversation with Geanne Meta. Geanne Meta is a proud mom, sister, wife, grandmom, friend, animal rescue, good cook, and nature lover living in Florida, United States. She is a childhood sexual abuse survivor who isn't afraid to talk about it. She has a passion for sharing her healing story in hopes of helping the multitude of others who suffers in silence. And on today's episode of Photo Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today Geanne Meta and Cindy Breck co-hosting me in the conversation. How are you doing today, Geanne? Welcome on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm doing great.
It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Absolutely. It's lovely to have you on the show today. Quite exciting. We are here to have a conversation and sit and talk about your book. Quite lovely. We are here. Thank you for joining, really.
I'm honored to be here.
This is going to be a very interesting conversation because it's rather deep.
It can be, yes.
Yes.
So, Gian, I need to first say that I was so surprised and quite intrigued when I get to discover your book, What is Artemis Afraid of, which is part of the Glory Be stories on Amazon. And I would like to ask you as to how this book came to be and how you came to writing in the genres of children's literature. Could you tell us about the foundation of the making of this?
Certainly. My inspiration is my granddaughter. She's 6 now, but when she was 3 or 4, she was especially anxious and afraid of new situations, even kids' birthday parties. She would just
Wow.
cling to her mom and not, and it was just it was bothersome because she's just such a bubbly child at home and everything. So I wanted to help her and other kids because it wasn't just her, I don't think, to get some ways to deal with it, some ideas. So I came up with the book, What is Artemis Afraid of,
Yeah.
to uh, talk about the little Artemis is the dog, and it's based off her little Chihuahua dog. And if you've met a Chihuahua, they're very afraid,
Mhm.
usually. And so the dog in the story is very afraid and anxious, and the little girl, Glory B, is the helper, is the strong one, is the one that supports her and tells her, I'll help you do this when we're having a birthday party, and I'll make sure they don't pet you if you don't want to, and teaches her to use her voice and get over her anxiety, and it's helping kids with their feelings.
Mm,
Because they have such intense feelings and a lot of times have no control over them when they're little. And so this book is very important to me for that,
wow.
and helping parents to understand that they can help their kids.
I find it very interesting that you talked about giving power to the voice.
Yes. Well, I wrote the children's book after my parenting book. I was coming around to getting to parents, and I said, how do you reach parents? Through children's books. If they have
Yeah.
kids, they're going to be reading to their kids. And so in the
Absolutely.
back of the book, I, mentioned, of course, my parenting book, and then I
Yeah.
have a guide to caregivers that explains how you can take the lessons in the story and expound on them and talk to your kids a little bit more about it.
Mm,
So yeah, I'm very proud of that book, and proud that my granddaughter is now a lot more comfortable. You know, Maybe part of that is growing up, but I think Artemis helped her too.
mm.
That's good. That's very good. I'm kind of like edgy about how to say this and intrigued on the other hand, but you've got a very dynamic, catchy title. Okay. And it might sound opposing, but in reality it's not. I think the more and more I think about your title, you really crafted this title to be something very significant for the reader. And so you've got a book out there, if I say this right, Parenting Well After Child Abuse. Be a great parent, even if yours were crap. Wow. I mean, I think about the ending of that, and I'm like, even
Mm,
if you're crap. So I almost feel like you're talking about breaking generational strongholds, all of this kind of
yeah.
stuff in just that capsulating that title. So, well, parenting well after your child's abuse. be a great parent even if yours were crap. That's really like
That's
dynamic.
heavy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
right. It is real heavy. But I want to know really what inspired you under the themes of parenting, how you kind of came up with that title.
Well, it's interesting. And thank you. My working title while I was writing it, which did take years actually to write, was How to Be a Great Parent Even If Yours Were Crap, which was a mouthful, but also it didn't really explain um, exactly what the book was about, So after when I was almost done with it and ready to publish,
Mm,
I had a coach and they helped me hone it down because you really want to let the reader know exactly why they would pick up this book.
yeah.
So, parenting well after childhood abuse is really what it's about. It's a parenting book, it's a healing book,
Mm,
but parenting well after childhood abuse can be heavy, is
yeah.
just mentioning
Yeah, it
child
is.
abuse, a
Yeah.
lot of people shy away from it.
Yeah.
However, if we don't talk about it, if we don't put it out there as reality, because it's happening every day all
Yeah.
over the world, um, then it remains a taboo. And, part of my thing is breaking silence, having a voice, helping other people, hopefully. So throwing the be a great parent, even if yours were crap, lets you know that it's heavy subject, but I'm also, dealing with it lightly, maybe. Let's talk about the reality. Your parents might have been crap.
Hmm.
Mm, that's really an heavy one. Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
Well, and you read me so well, Peter. Um, but I picked up on something really powerful in that, and that is you could be a great parent even when yours made mistakes.
Mm,
You don't have to
absolutely.
repeat it. And I think that's what I really like. And I know I'm getting nitpicky, Jan, but it truly is a compelling title.
It is.
It says a lot.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so I just want to say thank you for putting this out there. So as far as an author and everything.
Well, it was my passion. I went through a lot of healing and everything, and it was so important for me to do better. And let me just tell you, you can be a great parent, but you were never going to be a perfect parent. There is just no such thing. And there's no
Mm,
perfect kid. There's no perfect, I don't think perfect really exists. You could
mm,
try, you do your
yeah.
best,
Yeah.
but you're going to fail at parenting. Or at least I certainly did. And a lot of my book is what I strive to do. The parenting advice is what I really strive to do. But did I fail on some days? Did I yell and scream and, not really do the best? Yeah, I did. But that's okay too, as long as you do it with some kind of degree of kindness and respect and dignity for your kids, which
Mhm.
is I didn't feel I got from my parents. So,
That's quite amazing, really. I love the fact that you had to mention that, really. Just like the same way there's no perfect human being. I think just the same way there is no perfect parent. We can all try our best, but there will be some loophole left that we cannot really fill, no matter how hard we try. And I love the fact that you mentioned, childhood abuse, because I'm hilariously currently reading a book about that. And one of the things been mentioned, and even I think I even read that even in your bio, like most people don't like talking about it. Yeah, it's a conversation they often shy away from. And it can be very shocking because some of the victims, some of the perpetrators of this act could be someone close to you, could be a family member, could be a relative, could be friends, could be, neighbors, could be the least expected person. And it's just so hard to come out and talk about it. And now, taking that into account, I wanted to ask you, how hard has it been to show kindness to yourself? Because I know sometimes it might be this other side of you trying to like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, condemn yourself. The fact that you were the victim and somebody else is the perpetrators, yeah? I wanted to ask you, how hard has it been to show kindness to yourself? And is that a result of the childhood abuse, if in any way?
Yes,
Wow.
definitely. It's been one of the steps I've had to go through to work on myself, healing my inner child, realizing the reality of what happened was not my fault. There's so
Mm,
many common effects of child abuse, no matter what form it is, um, that the child feels it's their fault is almost number one for everybody.
mm,
Something if they could just be more lovable, better, a good child, their parents wouldn't be so angry. Anyway, there's shame, guilt, blame, self-blame, and the self-esteem children get from their formative years, that they're trying to figure out their place in the world, and it's very confusing and very detrimental. It's very harmful in so many ways. So being kind to yourself when you have low self-esteem, um, and you have negative self-talk, oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm not worthy. All these things that happen to kids, whether or not they're abused, actually, almost everybody has a I'm not good enough
mm,
feeling somewhere from something. But kindness to myself, I needed to give it to my little child. And in the book, I have a page, a worksheet on how to connect with your inner child, because sometimes you're very separated and you don't even realize why you're reacting. It's from that inner child is
mm,
screaming and
mm.
trying to get help and whatever. And so I did that. Kindness to her um, led to kindness to myself, and I've practiced and practiced and practiced for a long time.
Wow.
And now it's almost just part of me. And I teach it to, or am an example to some of my women friends who don't seem to be able to get out of their negative talk and their you know, self-esteem, and being kind, taking a compliment,
Yeah.
you know, like just say thanks.
A while ago, you
Wow.
said breaking the silence was important.
Yes.
And I'm hearing when you talk that that's what you're basically saying to your inner child. You have to break that silence. Would you actually even say, because I know from what I understand, you have a workbook after this title. Am I correct?
Yes.
What is your workbook about this? How does it relate to what we're discussing now?
Well, I wanted to expand on the book, and you could read it through and think, oh, those are great ideas, da da da. But something to put it into practice, something to go a little bit beyond and make it personal to
Yeah.
you, because, everybody's story is a little different.
Yeah.
So the workbook is basically taking a discussion guide, like questions a book club might ponder, but making it personal to yourself. And then there's blank pages in it that you could write. So it's questions
Mm.
about each chapter, and then some blank, pretty pages that you can write, just write whatever. And
Wow.
because journaling has been my lifeline since I was little,
Mm,
just writing my feelings, um, ideas, and getting my anger and feelings out always makes me feel better. It always just
mm,
having that, breaking that silence, I guess, even in a journal. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
not shouting it from a rooftop, but I'm getting it out of me,
Yeah.
you know?
Gian, since you showed the book, the journal there, could you actually show us the cover of it so English literature listeners could see that?
This is my sample copy that I got.
Okay.
I couldn't find my original, but it's kind
mm,
of the same as the book, which is a little flower growing out of a sidewalk. Um, but it's Parenting Well After Childhood Abuse workbook. And I didn't put the Be a Great Parent, even if you were crap, yours were crap, in this so I could advertise it. Because guess
mm.
what? Amazon won't let you advertise if you have like a bad word, and my bad
Yeah.
word was,
A triggering word.
yeah.
Yeah,
A
it's a trigger,
triggering
yeah.
word.
So I can't advertise my book. But anyway,
Wow.
that's okay.
By the way, I do like that title. I mean, and
It's
the cover, even
it's
though it has
lovely.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a
Thank you.
captivating one, quite dramatic, so direct, so provocative, so straight, so, unreserved, so street. So I
Right.
love it really. Like it's just eating to the nail,
Thank
eating it
you.
right to the nail, cutting directly to the chase. So direct. Yeah, eating the
I,
nail to the head. Like, yeah, this is it. That's so beautiful, really. And I love the fact that one of the things you mentioned initially from seeing this question is that you find writing to be quite therapeutic. I think that's a lovely one, really. And it's something that even most people can also relate to. Yeah, very
yes,
lovely. Now, I
yes,
wanted
thank
to
you.
ask you, why was it important? Because I find this to be quite really heavy and quite, I don't know if you'd like to talk about it, yeah? But then why was it important for you to break ties with your father?
Right. It was not easy. Um, I started going to therapy after my mom died, and she died 6 weeks after my firstborn, my daughter, was born. So I was just starting to get a better relationship with her, kind of, she was proud of me, and but she died suddenly of a heart attack. And
Oh,
that's when I started going to therapy. It was not too long after that. And a therapist said, some people break ties with their abuser. And I was like, whoa, no, no way. I couldn't possibly. But that little tiny suggestion just kind of started. And my sister, my oldest sister, that is 18 months older than I, Taryn, she and I grew up, tight as peas in a pod. And we talked about it. We went through it together. It was us against them in our household. So, she had cut ties before. And I always was trying to keep things together, and the pretense, really, of a happy family um, is what I was doing. So when my mom died, also, that freed me up to maybe I didn't have to pretend anymore. And because my main thing was to protect my children, I did not, I was like given this beautiful gift, and I had to protect her. I had to make sure nobody, if it is in my power, I was going to protect her from being abused for sure, but being hurt in any way if I could, you know. So breaking ties with him made more and more sense. And then one day I confronted him, and I didn't talk to him after that for 14 years.
I'm a bit kind of very, I don't know, it's getting a bit much intense, really. You did mention that breaking ties, most people say breaking ties with the abuser is the best way. Are you trying to say your dad is the abuser or the perpetrator or
Oh,
something?
yes,
Really?
openly, absolutely. My father molested all of his four daughters
Wow.
um, for years and years. And he
Jeez.
admitted it, and he tried to pay us some money to get over it. Um, but yeah, yes, my father
Wow.
was the abuser and my mother was the enabler. So
Wow.
there was also, I had a good childhood. Okay, so nobody's all good and all bad, right? I grew up, lower middle class probably, and was given a lot of things, and my father taught me a lot of good things. I can take the good, but that bad, that abuse, that betrayal of trust and breaking of my innocence, that is unforgivable to
Mm,
me. And it colors all the other good stuff. It
mm.
it really does
Definitely.
override. And that's really sad, but it's my truth. That's my truth.
It's very sad, but at the same time, and it's one of those things that you seem to have worked beyond, though, and through. And I think that writing this has been definitely a healing aspect for you.
Yes.
Which of your books really contain the story about this? I'd like you to show it to the camera just so we see. Which of your titles convey the story about the abuse? I'd like you to show to the camera so we can
Well,
see.
it is my book,
This
The
one,
Parenting Well
interesting.
After
Okay.
Childhood Abuse. Yes.
Yeah.
But, however, I want to make sure that people don't think this is a memoir. memoir, it's not a retelling of abuse. I'm not trying to give that too much fire at all. Um, it is about healing. It is about the steps I took. At each and every chapter is another thing, breaking the cycle, getting out of denial, why go to therapy, these things that I did because I'm not the only survivor of childhood sexual abuse. There's millions, millions. So I want to help others at least have a roadmap because I had to find my resources. I had to look and, really search, parenting resources, healing myself, and therapy for me. It really, really, really helped because I finally did get my voice and somebody listened to me and believed me, which is a powerful, wonderful thing.
It's
Wow.
definitely powerful when somebody else has that faith in what you're sharing. And then that person, when you break that silence, that person helps you. I know Peter is writing, taking
Yeah, I'm
notes there.
writing it down.
I know you are because he reads like all these like nonfiction things
Yeah,
and
I'm
some,
writing it down because I'm taking notes.
That's
I'll
yeah,
get
great.
back to you. I'll get back to you via email later.
yeah.
Okay,
No,
awesome.
that's kind of impressive that you do that, Peter.
Hmm.
Well, hey, we're all on a learning curve in this journey. Even though we're here and sharing your story, we're all on a
Mm.
learning curve. So I want to know, apart from this book we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works you're authored or currently working on?
I'd have to say no, but I have written another children's book
Okay.
and I was waiting for inspiration, and it's my new grandson. I have a new grandson. My son now has a son. My daughter has a daughter, and my
Congratulations.
Oh,
son has a
beautiful.
son. So the circle is complete. But he's 3 months old now, just
Mm.
most perfect baby in the world. And also, what I'm proud of is that I've taken this parenting book as far as I could. I feel like I did the workbook. I also recorded my own audiobook. And that was some challenges. I had to
I
learn
bet.
all about that. But I said it in my own, I read it in my own voice. Nobody else, I don't think, could have done it as well. It was important, I think, for me to have the readers hearing me. So that's just another avenue that people can get it because a lot of people really like audiobooks more so than
Yeah.
reading, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna continue with the children's books because that's where my heart is now, is with the grandkids.
Yeah. That's quite fun, really. And it sounds like you've got a lot ongoing. Quite beautiful. Well done and quite commendable. I hope you find some time to sleep. It's very necessary.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I'm semi-retired. But what I'm so proud of is my children who are adults now,
Mm.
and they're both married and homeowners, and
Mm.
they don't even need me so much anymore. I
Wow.
mean, but they do kind of course, but
Yeah.
they are self-sufficient, happy, well-adjusted kids,
Wow.
that it warms my heart
Mm.
that I have such good kids.
Mm. Absolutely. And I was just going to ask you, based on that, based on what you just shared, what specific thing do you do differently with your children now you think you do not have such, what I say, you were not shown such kind of thing from your own parents? What specific thing do you do differently with your children that you did not really have when you were young?
There's a lot. My parents were a different generation, right? I was
Yeah.
born in 62, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Oh.
Um, and my parents were more of the, it is our word, we are the rulers, and because I told you so, this is why you did. So there was punishment and there was lectures. My dad would sit me down and just lecture, and I would just sit there and count my fingers and wait until I could, be dismissed. It was not a discussion. There was no diplomatic thing,
Mm.
democracy in my house. So I wanted to change that. So it was a mindset.
Yeah.
And I had to think about what I wanted. What I needed actually as a child
Yeah.
would have been understanding, some leniency, some support,
Mm.
some forgiveness when I made mistakes, just a lot of that. So I looked for parenting books and I found some great ones that really helped me just think differently. And my job was to be their support,
Mm.
their and to teach them, because they're very new beginning little beings in the world. And my job was to teach them how to be, civilized, but also all the things,
Mhm.
kindness to them, support and protection. My main goal was to protect them and teach them that they had a voice, that they could
Wow.
talk to me, that they could be honest.
Mhm.
Um, like I was afraid of my parents. If I messed up, it's like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. No, not
Yeah.
me. But to
Right.
my children, a specific thing that I did with my kids was I would say, okay, if you tell me the truth, you won't be in trouble. And I really had to stick with that. And they're like, yes, it was me. And then I would go, well, I'm really disappointed or I'm really mad, but I'm not going to punish you, you
Yeah.
know? And then they learned that they could trust me,
Mm.
that my word, I said what I meant, and that I could forgive them for being human, for making mistakes,
Mm.
which kids are always going to do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that is so beautifully said. The way you put it, basically by breaking the silence, giving your children their own voice and training them up in giving them their voice, but yet you still held them accountable for what they did.
Mm.
But if they were truthful,
Yeah.
truth
Yes.
carries so much weight. And
It does.
I appreciate how you clarified that and brought that forth. And Peter, that was a really interesting and thought-provoking question and how you asked that. Now, okay, I want to switch things just a little bit, and I don't mean to take it away from this, but have, you've probably got a learning curve even on the publishing end of things. Um, so were there any challenges that you had encountering in the process of writing this book? And have you ever learned anything differently, or what would you like to share with the audience of P English literature about your journey in writing?
Sure. I'm self-published,
Okay.
so that was something that I really didn't know much about. But in everything that I've really accomplished and done well, I've gotten help,
Mm.
like the therapy, really, and then finding the parenting books and looking for my own resources. I need help. I couldn't do it alone. There's so much to it. So I was the writer, and writing to me, even though I took breaks, sometimes for months, I would just write, not thinking like the book from A to Z. I just wrote about forgiveness, or I just wrote about how to break the cycle, and those became chapters
Hmm.
later, and the editor really helped me with that. But so there's steps, many, many steps. Basically, you got to get your writing done. And then I got self-publishing .com, but it was called Self-Publishing School, and they had a program. But I'm sure there's many, many other things. And I would get a coach probably that's a writing or publishing and works with authors.
Mm.
There's also Facebook groups for
Yeah.
authors and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, we're not inventing the wheel. It's been
Right.
done. But there's some major things that you have to do to make sure it's a professionally done, because
Mm.
self-publishing used to be like anybody can print it out write in Word, print it out
Yeah.
and upload it. But you really, really want to have a good cover,
Mm.
so get a good cover designer,
Yeah.
and and then an editor. You absolutely cannot skip the editing, professional editor, because they help so much,
Yeah.
Mine made me make sense of it to put it into two parts. The first part is healing, healing yourself. And the second part focuses on parenting and raising good kids.
Mm.
So super good cover, getting editing and formatting.
Yeah.
You can't do that yourself, or I couldn't. I didn't know how to do that. So, getting professional help, and there's freelance people on Fiverr or Upwork is where I found my illustrator. I've never met her for my children's book, but
Mm.
she's in Canada, and I put my job up there and she accepted it, and we worked together, and it was fantastic. Those were some of the challenges, but you just go step by step
Yeah.
and, write your own author description, write your book description, and make sure you put in those keywords and cat that are going to show up. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There
It's a
is, there
lot.
is.
But I just kept doing step by step, and quite proud to have it there. And
Yeah.
then probably the most challenging thing is the marketing afterwards.
Yeah.
That's kind of the phase I'm in now.
That's so good, really. Thank you for sharing. I love your take on that. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview, and you'd love the viewers to know?
Well, basically, I think, and this is me marketing, but my book, Parenting Well After Childhood Abuse, which I call PWACA because that's the abbreviated
Yeah.
bit, um, it can be for anybody. I mean, because the healing part is teaching kindness to yourself,
Mm.
watching yourself talk. Um, it, anyway, self-care and relationships, and all these things. And then so it could be good for just someone that maybe has struggles and abuse, childhood abuse, but isn't a
Mm.
parent, right? So it could be
Mm.
good for them. And then the parents that maybe had great parents, grew up at Disney World, they
Yeah.
still want some good, solid advice
Mm.
on all kinds of things, because that's what I do reference, because I was abused, it was hard for me to do this or that. So, but it's universal. Parenting struggles are kind of universal. So,
Yeah.
I hope that my parenting advice helps with that mindset I talked about, with realizing you're on a team with your kids. You're
Yeah.
there to support them and teach them and help them and protect them, um, and be honest. And, you can, they can turn out to be really happy, healthy adults,
Yeah.
because that's the goal. You don't want to have to be taking care of them their
Mm.
entire life. So my kids started learning laundry at 10.
Wow. That's
But
lovely.
whatever.
So
Yeah,
did mine.
right.
Out of curiosity, where can English literature listeners get a copy of your book?
Well, the easiest, most prevalent probably is Amazon because it is worldwide. It's all over, and I'm really happy to see that my book has been bought all over the world.
Mm.
And
Impressive.
but it's also at Barnes and Nobles and Target and Walmart and things like that. The audio is on Apple and Spotify and wherever you might, look for that. It's the same title. And the Artemis book also is in Amazon. I think I've got it in Barnes and Nobles, but anywhere you can get books, you can get my books.
That's amazing. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Geanne Bowman book directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on our website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Geanne, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say this conversation it's very emotional, quite interesting, quite important, very striking, very relatable with what is happening in our current world, and very great, useful for everyone. And I must say, this is really more than awesome. And thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
It was really nice getting to meet you, and I do appreciate the fact that you're giving voice to something that is a very, very sensitive subject. And not only that, I do appreciate the fact that you do have a workbook to help people through this because a lot of
Yeah.
people are self-isolators. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.